if something is too hard, he just wants to give up. And I'm like, we're not going to train our child because something is too hard, they're just going to give up. Because guess what? You're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
You're not going to do anything.
Yep.
Because your whole life, there is nothing that you're just going to come out of the gate and be really good at, especially an instrument. We are now.
Hey, good morning, good morning, good morning.
I beg to let's 100% make sure that we go live. Forget about all the other problems or the mess ups that possibly could happen. If we don't go live, none of it matters. That means
Press the button.
The button is pressed. It looks like it's recording.
Let's go.
Let's just hope. I mean, hopefully the audio. Yeah, not sure exactly what's causing it, but it is what it is.
You know, I don't want this to come across as bragging, but I am very grateful that I'm not in charge of any of the audio.
This might not come across as what's the word I'm looking for? Bickering, complaining. I'm upset that you're not in charge of any of this. That's why, like, when I call you, I'm like, you're 100% sure. Before I leave, before I go to the church, did anything come up that you forgot to tell me about?
We're going to be there tomorrow morning, right?
Yeah, I know. The reason is because, let's just say, our past history, and sometimes things happen. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, man.
So I have to make sure that, hey, we're 100%. And I knew it was Father's Day weekend, so it was like, and sometimes, especially as husbands, we can plan things all the time, not remembering the 100th time our wife told us to do something, right? And so, like, that's why, like, that Friday night, I was like, hey, it's Father's Day weekend. Are you sure you're not going anywhere? The Hocking Hills for the weekend to something, right? Because it's like, and you're like, nope, we're good. I'm like, all right, honey, I'll be right back.
Yeah. Spontaneity. It's a lot of fun.
Something.
Horrible for planning a life around, though.
But I wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Well, it's always appreciated. You know, as you know, having a family changes everything.
Everything. So. Yeah. It changes everything, and you never know what's your plans can change in a second.
Yeah. So, how has your week been, though? Like, I feel like we haven't really talked a whole lot this past week,
and that hasn't been on purpose.
I know, but you've had a ton of stuff going on. Like anything new in your life that like you experienced this past week that like.
No, just a little bit more exhaustion than normal. Actually, it was pretty exhausting. Actually, on Sunday, I was even like the kid who was helping me was 15. If he felt any type of exhaustion that I was feeling, I mean, he went home like feeling sick, and like I felt like I was gonna throw up from like just being there all from Sunday morning from 9:30 to all the way at night, and then Sunday, like, you know, midday, you just get tired. Like, it's just this tiredness that comes on Sundays that I had to fight through, and he probably had to fight through it. And me being older than him, I've worked through the exhaustion before, so it's like I knew I could push through. A 15-year-old is probably hasn't felt this kind of exhaustion much. You know what I mean? He's going to.
Hopefully, he has.
Yeah, but hopefully, so he went home not feeling good. And then he came back the next day, and then he stayed with me pretty much all day again. And then the Tuesday, he was like, "I'm not really feeling good." And I was like, "Yeah, no worries, I got it." But I mean, like everything was good, and you just always want to do your best. You know what I mean? So like that puts pressure on. That makes you feel a little sick at times. So, but besides that, I think
that pressure's good. It's good though. It's healthy.
Yeah, no. I mean, I feel like I looked busier than I really was. It made me look good. No, I was busy. I'm just kidding. I was thinking about it like, hey, I just fake look, just running around looking like you just running from room to room sweating, and they just look like you're doing stuff. No, I really was. I'm just kidding, but
all you have to do, I feel like as like a an audio visual video kind of guy, all you have to do is like walk around with batteries in your hands and like cables, and like people will think you're busy.
You're busy.
You know, like they might not plug into any of the equipment you have, but as long as you're walking around with those.
No, it was because a lot of things were changing. The singer wanted to change, and there was constant change that we had to figure out stuff on the fly. But hey, everybody was happy at the end of it. Everybody was good. Yeah, no, my week was it was a little busy, but I mean, for Fedora and Sons, I was able to go out to the job site, get all of my get the stuff that I needed, plan it all out for next week. I'm good for next week and some into the week after that. So
Yeah.
like I got caught up, and then Laura got, she's been dealing with something, but and now Theo's sick. That's the thing about, man, the more people you add to your family, the more like, things is like, and that's why, man, it's crazy because like people who work 9 to 5 jobs and you have a family, that's hard. Like, I mean, like, somebody gets sick, this person gets sick. If you don't have any family in town, like, you're the person. And that's why when I was a manager, granted, I didn't really have any, the first time I had people with kids, but if people got sick, it's like, hey, I understand, go. Life is life, you got to take care of what you got to take care of.
It definitely changed my perspective being a dad, because when we worked together at Verizon, like, I didn't have any children, so like
You just work.
My perspective towards my employees was like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then like I had a kid and I'm like, it's a little different.
It's a little different.
A little different to figure that out.
It is.
And it's like your point. If you have no family here, it's like
you're
figuring it out is very limited.
Yeah, you can't just call mom or call brother, call sister.
It's probably gonna fall on me.
Yeah. And the thing is like when you have a wife that's stressed out, that even adds more because it's like you're the person who needs to figure it out. Yeah. Especially as a husband, you need to figure it out.
The problem solver.
And if you don't have a manager that understands that things come up and you have family and the jobs always, jobs are always going to be like your family has to come first. Like it just is what it is. But
it's a good time.
It is.
The logistics of life, figuring it all out.
It is.
I was really this past like week, man. Like I've just been getting this like this imagery and like this like so we have this it's like this triangular shaped like ladder, and it's like for climbing on, right?
Sure.
And then it has like this like board that basically lays on one of the runs, and it becomes a slide, right? So essentially Jacob can climb up one side of it, climb over the top, and then slide down the other side.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And this kid is just fearless, man. Like he will crawl all the way up there, climb all the way up there, throw his leg over, and just let go, and just go right down the slide.
Did he start off fearless, or you had to push him? You had to get him.
So I don't know if it was ever like, I don't know if he was ever fearful of it. I think it was more of just like a lack of coordination when he first started going up the runs, right?
Sure.
So like he would climb up one and then he'd be like, all right, this is pretty high. I don't know if I can get my leg up to the next run. And so you would see him like, he would trying to figure it out, right? So like he'd raise his right arm and grab another run, but then he'd be like, look, trying to look down to see where he can put his foot, and then as his coordination got better, like he's climbed up and goes down very quickly now, and he's started climbing on our coffee table, our TV stand, now he's climbing on the kitchen table. Like now he's like fearless completely of climbing.
And now there's more fear in you.
Right. Yes. The fear has definitely transferred to his mother and I, for sure. 100%. And I like, getting to see your child kind of grow in his coordination and then also establish like some bravery, some courage, and some confidence to really go after that. And it was really crazy. So this past Sunday, Heather came out to the job site, and she brought Jacob with her, and like she made us some BLTs, some beef, some beef bacon BLTs for me and the guys. Yeah, it was awesome, right? So she brought like some fresh peaches. It was great. It just working on a Sunday is already kind of like yeah. So then having lunch brought over and like some refreshments, it was really great. So I'm climbing up this step ladder, right? And I'm probably like maybe 6 feet off the ground myself. So there was like 5 ladder rungs that were available below me, right? And so I'm working, and I look behind me, and there's this little hand grabbing my heel.
And
Jacob had climbed up the ladder and was right behind me, basically. Like
Heather,
right below me.
That's a Heather. Where are you?
Oh, she was right over there. She was like 15 feet away, but she was talking to the homeowner, right?
Heather.
And so I'm like, hey, buddy, what are you doing? And he was just like, just looking up at me, just watching everything that I was doing, man. And like, I guess one of my takeaways from that was the power that us dads have in creating a confident and courageous young man. And because like whatever he sees me doing, like Jacob's like, oh, no fear. Yep, dad's doing it. I'm right behind you. Like, I got this. Like, you know what I mean? And it then came to my mind, you know, tying this into scripture where, you know, it talks about like 365 times in the Bible, it says to not be afraid or do not fear, right? And I got, you know, when I became a dad, like there was so many connections to the relationship that I have with God and the relationship that I have with my son that I made. Like they just like clicked, you know what I mean? And it was like any like ambiguity that I've ever felt like in the Bible that maybe I just didn't understand it, or I lacked the understanding, or lacked the, you know, just the clarity of what the scripture was saying, right? Just so many things just made so much more sense. You know what I mean? And it was like, well, yeah, like I totally would sacrifice my life for my son. Like no problems. Like,
Yeah,
you
we're
know,
not even thinking
question.
about it.
Yeah,
Not even
like
thinking about it.
so God doing that to save us, like, you know what I mean? It just, a lot of those things kind of just clicked. It just made sense, right? But then it tied into the example of, so how do I, as a father, help be the example for my son to pursue that life of courageously pursuing God's calling in his life? And knowing that if God has put that calling on his life, that he will provide, and that like all you got to worry about is showing up and doing the work, son. That's it, you know?
That's it's hard to teach your kids that for real. Like I struggle. Like my kids are. I think it's, and every kid's different, right? Like some kids are going to be more courageous than others. I see other kids like just do things. Like I can't get my kids to. There's certain things that like my oldest will try to make my youngest do it first. Oh, you didn't get hurt.
I'll try.
Yeah. Or I'll try. Or like if there's a new food.
Yeah.
Or, do you like it? Because if you don't like it, I'm not gonna like it. You know what I mean?
I'm not even trying it.
Make
you don't like it.
No, that's 100%. So like, even yesterday, like
the royal taste tester.
Yeah, like my oldest is like he like uses the middle child as a guinea pig, like for like everything.
That makes so much sense now in my life too, because I was a middle child.
Hey, go do that first. Like I'm not stupid. You go do it first. And there's so many things that like he does it for, like it does anything that Theo's never tried. And trying to get my kids to not be afraid, it is a struggle, because like my kids are like they're just naturally afraid. Yeah. Like Thaddeus yesterday, there was my camera gear was like, you know, so far off the couch, and he's like, watch me jump over it, and then he gets scared and it doesn't jump over it, and it wasn't even that much off the thing, and I'm like, well, let me see you jump over on this side when there's nothing, and he can clear it easily. Yeah. I'm like, you can clear this easily. No, I can't. No, I'm scared. Crying to a point. I'm like, you're not going to hit it. Just jump over it.
Just go for it.
And then I was like, here, I'll hold your hand. Then he just I'm like, you can clear it. But like trying to get because the conversation is always this. It's always, do you think I would tell you to do it?
Yeah.
If it was going to hurt yourself? And my kid would be like, yeah. You know what I mean? I'm like, no, like I don't want you to get scared. Like we went swimming, and like I didn't get in. And of course, it probably would have been easier if I was in, but like I wasn't in. And they have life jackets on. I'm like, you guys can. There was another girl there who was a little shorter than them, standing in the middle, like where the pool is. And I'm like, you can stand. Nope, yeah. I can't. I'm too scared. I'm like, you can hold on to the wall, like, and it's like. My kids, trying to teach them is it's hard. I haven't figured it out yet. I'm hoping as they get older, like they'll start understanding. But like that's something.
Did you notice a difference when like you offered your hand to your son and he took it? And
I still had to like. It was still a process to get him to do it.
Got it.
Like it wasn't just all right. I'll hold your hand and jump over.
Yeah.
Like I think that, and I think, and we were talking about, you know, you were talking about when you had a dad or when you had a kid, you started understanding, and I think that's the same way with God too, though. Like you know, we're like, we still question even when God wants us to do something, and He's like, no, I got you.
Yeah.
And then you're like, no, I don't think so. And he's like, I'll hold your hand. And you still like, I love the analogy, like, you know, it's all about trust when it really comes down to it. I mean, that's, you know, and so there's a story, or it's like a skit, I should say. And the skit is, Jesus goes up to this girl and she doesn't trust him. And he's like, well, let's just practice. And he stands behind her. Like, you know, this is her. He gets behind us and just fall into my arms, and they're like really close, and she falls. Yeah. He's like, oh, I can trust you. And then he steps 1 foot back and he's like, all right, dude, let's do it again. And she's like, I don't know. And she's like, no. He's like, I got you. And he falls and he catches her and like, I can trust you, and make like 1 more step back. And then she's like, oh, okay, I got this. I'll fall, and falls and got it. He's like, let's just do it 1 more time. She's like, all right, I got this. And then he walks in front of her. And then she's like, oh, I don't think I can trust you that much. You know what I mean? And so, like, that's the thing. It's like, if God is asking us to do something, kind of like my kid, right? Like, I mean, if we have a healthy relationship, there's some bad dads out there. I get it.
Sure.
But if you have a healthy relationship and you really care about your kid, you are not going to tell them to do something that you know that you're either going to take care of them or help them or that they can do it. And, but the nice thing, it's always never a perfect analogy. Mm-hmm. It's never perfect because God is all powerful. Sure. You know what I mean? And so, like, if God is telling you to do something, then He's 100% going to take care of it. You know? Yeah. And it might not look the way we want it to look like, but yeah. But no, it's trying to get my kid holding my hand. Like, I mean, he did it though. That was a good step.
It's as you're just kind of talking through all of that, I'm getting this like thought where it's like what we say to our children, right, is so impactful.
Oh, 100%.
Because like any reservations that I think our specifically our sons will develop in response to our voice and our direction, right? Like Jacob, he's already like, no, right? Like everything is like, weird look, head cock, and then no. And so it's like anything that I'm going to say to him, right? I feel like it has to have that forethought behind it, right? Of like, if I'm asking him to do something now that maybe it's not really that big of a deal, right? Maybe if it's just like a preference, like, it's not even something that like, if he did it, it's going to hurt him. You know what I mean? It's really just my ego or like me speaking, right? It's like, okay, he's playing with chalk, for example. You know what I mean? And I want him to stop playing with the chalk because it's ruining my day, him playing with chalk, right? You know what I mean? Like, because we all get to places where like we might be irritable, right? Like whatever we've experienced in our day, right? But even in that moment, like our son is listening to our direction, right? And even in those moments, if we're maybe too rigid or, maybe we're thinking it's a joke, but to him, that's potentially all that he knows, sure, right? Or that's all that he's perceiving in that moment. And it could be a moment that he's going to remember, Like I wanted to ask too, like when you think of your childhood, and I know that this might be a little bit unique for you, but like, were there any moments where you felt like really afraid? And was there, maybe somebody that stepped into your life and either spoke and said something or showed you something that made that fear disappear? Or was there also another situation where maybe their response created even more fear, right?
You need to text these questions before.
Yeah. Well, I love the improvisation too, though. In this, it's such. I feel like we have just fun dialogue, And
I'm just teasing. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to go back to my.
So like this is
about being afraid. I mean.
So this is I'll give you some time to think, but this was a situation that I thought of,
because
right?
you thought of the question.
Yeah. You're like, give me something. So, and it's kind of weird because it is also like the first time in my young existence where I think I reached out to God and wanted to find salvation because I was afraid, right? And so where we had just moved to little old McMinnville, Tennessee, and I think I was like, I want to say I was like 6 or 7, right? And we were going to this church, and somebody had gotten baptized like a couple weeks before this, right? And so like the conversations around baptism, about being saved, all of that were kind of happening between me and my mom. And there were these tornadoes that were coming through our neighborhood or through the town, like through that county, right? Like, and we could look out our door and we could literally see these,
wow.
crazy storms, man, and the winds blowing like crazy, literally shaking the house. Like, I was terrified. Like, I thought I was going to die, and I thought I was going to go to hell because I wasn't saved, right? And so, it fueled me to, run into my mom's arms. And, I started talking to her, and I was like, I need to be saved, Mom. I need to be saved. Like, I don't want to, go to hell. Like, I don't want to die and go to hell, And so we prayed. I, accepted Jesus as my Savior. And then, like, a couple Sundays later, I was baptized, right? And so, like, fear propelled me into, like, God's arms, right? And into my mom's arms. And, like, her response, she could have just been dismissive in that moment, right? But it's a moment that has stood out to me and in my memory, and was like that first kind of like connection I felt as a young person to God. And then, so yeah, I don't know if you have anything.
I can't think of anything. I'm trying to think of a time in my life that I was super scared or had fear. Man, I don't know. I mean, I'm not even going to say that time. That was, I mean, I did a lot of drugs when I was younger. So I'm not going to bring up that moment. But
so then maybe was there a time where you were afraid and you did reach out to somebody and they maybe gave you,
I'm trying to think. I'm just trying to think of a time that I was afraid or scared. I can't. Man, off the cuff, I can't even think. Now I'm trying to think of what memories do I have.
Yeah.
I mean, I have memories, of course. I mean, I don't know. Like, my life is. I mean, even when I was afraid, I don't know if there was really anybody like that, and it just had to push through and just keep going, kind of deal. Like,
yeah.
I mean, being kicked out of the house by the police when we were younger, not having anywhere to live. It was just like ongoing. You know what I mean? There wasn't really like, it was just I mean, not when I was younger. I mean, of course, when I was dying a few years ago, I mean, there probably was some fear there.
Yeah.
And the doctors being like, oh, it's going to be okay. You know what I mean? And like, but as a kid, I mean, growing up.
What did you do with that fear in the hospital?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to just trust the doctors. I mean, because there was times where I couldn't, like, when I felt like about breathing, and it was more of like, man, can I breathe or am I going to make it? And the nurses would tell me like, look, we did all of this stuff to take care of you. We're going to, and there was probably some comfort there, knowing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
so like the nurse's response helped you kind of
sure
kind of calm down.
I just had to trust that they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't an empty. It wasn't, because like a lot of times you're going to probably get, when you're afraid, you get everything's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. I do this to my wife all the time. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Something happened.
Sure.
It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And she hates that. She hates the almost the dismissive.
Yeah.
It's going to be fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you just hope everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're going to figure it out. But
yeah. So I was asking one of my brothers, he has 4 children, and, I just kind of asked him, I was like, hey, well, looking back at, because all of his children are young adults now. Right?
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, looking back at, how you raised your children, like, what are some things that you learned that you might have done differently? Right. And he was like, I would be less rigid. And like, when we started like kind of unpacking that, it was like in responses, right? When you have like house rules and you have all of these structures that you've built to try to propel your children forward, right? To help maybe give them some guidelines that could help them navigate through some
Sure.
terrible situations or fearful situations in their life, right? But there's always that human element to it of being able to perceive what is really going on in your child's life and then respond appropriately, right? Or to the best of your ability in that moment. And I think that the other piece of this is that our children are going to be afraid. Like
Yeah,
they're going to be terrified.
I mean, it's the natural response when you don't
Yeah.
you don't have, and that's for all of us. Whenever you step into an unknown, and for a kid, their whole life is an unknown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and I was listening to this. It was just like a YouTube video, live. I think it was Life on Purpose was the name of the channel or something like that. And the gentleman was talking about how to help your child like work through fear and anxiety. And he went into even like the biological aspects of it, of
Sure.
like, well, what is happening in your child's body, right? And in our brains, like we have this whole system that is somewhat subconscious that kicks in when our body perceives a threat. So like it might not even be a real threat. Like it could be a perceived threat where like you're watching a movie and it's doom,
Sure.
getting intense, and you're like, like your body's, sending all of these chemicals throughout your body to be prepared to fight, right? Or
Yeah.
to run. And, at a child's age, like they have no clue. Like, why is my heart rate, increasing? Why is my my hands shaking? Why am I potentially feeling like I'm tearing up, right? Like however those chemicals might be causing their body to respond. And so this guy was breaking it down and like, he's like, you want to explain all of that to your kids, he's like, you want them, and of course there's probably an age where
Sure.
Talking-
that makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, they're not going to be just sitting there going, huh? Dad. Like,
Stop crying.
Yeah. Don't be afraid. But yeah. So he was talking about like, and he was like even saying like it's important to try to educate your child on the perceived threats, to where they are understanding everything that's going on, and to be able to help them take a breath, try to calm themselves down,
Sure.
so that way, later on in life they can proceed through that fear. One of the things that is interesting in the Bible is that, it talks all throughout the Bible that the fear of God, the fear of Yahweh, is the beginning of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, okay, so he wants us to not be afraid of everything, right? Like he wants us to actually be filled with very little fear in most aspects of our life. And he wants us to be basically afraid of him, but also like pursuing and chasing him with everything that we have. So that way that fear, I don't know. I don't look at it as like a fear of like retribution,
Yeah.
right?
It's not a fear of like, I'm scared. It's a healthy fear.
Right?
When you're raising your kid, you're trying to tell them what to do. Like, you want your kid to have this sense of, if I mess up, I'm going to disappoint my dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like, and the beginning of like, to have that fear at the beginning of, for knowledge, it's like, God's like, my way is the best way.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not doing it my way, I promise you're not doing it the best way.
You're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
You're going to
So,
scrape
like,
your knee. You're going to bust your elbow. You're going to, I 100% believe that that's like the same, like the Bible, like the same verbiage is like in that, the same way that we talk to our children. Like,
Oh, 100%.
hey, like if you listen to me, you're not going to get hurt.
Yeah. No,
You know,
like,
you're not going to scrape your knee, man.
Yeah.
Like,
or if, and the thing is, I think God allows, like, even like for our kid, and our God allows us, he knows what we can like take, right? Like, if it's okay to scrape your knee, like I want maybe like, if you do scrape your knee, I'm here for you.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Even
If you
crazier, if
fall
you
off-
scrape your knee, I've designed your body to essentially self-heal.
Exactly.
So, like, I've already taken care of you.
Yeah, I'm already, and I want my kid like, and that's the thing, like, when my kid, both of my kids, one is like super emotional, one's like a thinker. And so like when they process like fear, and it doesn't, the fear could be anything. The fear can just be not knowing how to do something. And I don't want to stick two Legos together. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
one kid is and so like in frustration. And so one kid goes from 0 to 100 right away. The other kid tries to figure it out for a little while and tries to work through it. And then he gets upset. Like he's learning chess, and like you could just watch. And the hardest part, especially, is trying to get your kids to articulate what's going on in their brain. Because like trying to I'm like, because the last time I was like, well, just tell me what you're thinking. What's going through your mind right now? And he can't. He can't.
Yeah.
So like, but like I think like just trying to press him on that.
Yeah.
And hopefully he'll start being able to, because it's like it's hard to walk your kid through something when you don't know what's actually going on in their mind.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It's good times.
Trying to get your kid not like because most of the time crying is the direct response to like anything.
Sure.
The kid just will start crying, and trying to get them to understand like this isn't worth crying over. Let's figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, because I mean, even from the baby to like probably 8, 9, 10, 11, they're just, and even in adults, we, get to a point of crying, but we've learned to build up our endurance over time. So, yeah.
What are some things that, as an adult with children, right? What are some things that maybe you are afraid of?
Say that one more time.
So, like, as an adult with children, what are some things that you're afraid of that maybe like you don't necessarily, you don't like carry that fear around, right? But like when it's presented to you, right? Like I'll give an example. Like I started analyzing my driving in a completely different way, having Jacob in the back seat, right? And not necessarily from like, oh, I drive really slow now, or like I am just extremely aware of what's happening on the right side of my car, like at all times. Like I'm paying attention to, if I'm making a left-hand turn, how close are those cars? I'm more attentive to that now, and somewhat more fearful of, well, what's happening over there? Is it going to negatively impact my son? I don't care if somebody hits me on the left side. You know what I mean? Like, come at me, bro. You know what I mean? Like, but like on the right side where my wife and my son are, it's like, I just find myself fearful of an unknown that could happen over there.
Yeah. I mean, walking down the street with your kids. I mean,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like pretty much at the park when your kids are, I mean, some of these parks, I don't know how kids are, like, there's not a death every other day, right? Or a kid breaking their neck. Like, cause there's some parks I'm like, whew.
Yeah.
Like they're scary. But,
something I witnessed the other day. So we got to this, it's Makino Park over there in Mason.
Okay.
And they have like this, like walkway, but then they have like this, it's like an 8-foot tall fence around the park section. And it's mainly to keep like deer out of the park because they have those, like the soft padded floors.
Yeah.
Underneath everything there. So I think that like deer's like, walking on that, pooping on that, like
soaking in. All
yeah. They're trying to keep, I think, it cleaner for the kids. But anyways, so, as we're walking up, all you really see is this massive fence, and then you can see through the fence and you see there's a park on the other side, right? But we walk through the gate and Jacob, he does this thing where he arches his back like this, and he'll like walk with his arms just slightly behind him, so his belly is all like perched out in front of him, right? So he's like walking forward towards this park, and you can tell he is like eyeing everything, trying to analyze like, is this safe? Like, am I gonna be okay? And we get to the edge of the like where we're about to like go climb on things, right?
Yeah.
And he's just standing there, like not moving forward at all, just like still looking, right? And so I'm like, okay, like, are we just going to stand here? So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go. So I start walking. And the second I moved forward, boom, he was right behind me. And it just made me think, too, of like all of the fears that he might have been analyzing in that moment. But then the second he saw me, take that step forward, it was like, all right, cool, I'm going with Dad. And when we get when we really, I think that especially here in America, we've done such a horrible job of disassociating ourselves from God, in the sense that, like, he's right here. You know what I mean? Like, he's all around me. Like, every step I take,
He's probably more in front of you.
yeah, right. Like, wherever, you know what I mean? Like,
he's
like,
already taken this.
he's
step.
so close to me that there's nothing that I'm thinking or feeling or doing that he's not already in tune with.
Yeah,
you
sure.
know? And so when you think of that imagery of, like, anything that in life, if we're on the edge of the park, like, God's ready to take that next step with us too. You know, he's ready to move with us. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
No, yeah, no. I mean, yeah. I mean, living life without God, I don't know. For me, it would be too fearful.
Yeah. Well, and I know you and we've talked about this on the job sites before. And, like, without fail, Dustin, every time I have feared or worried about the finances of the business, I get a phone call, man. And it's like, why am I worrying about this? You know what I mean? Like, why am I afraid? Why, like,
Sure.
why? Why do I let that fear and those lies take up my thoughts?
Because sometimes when reality, it's hard because when reality touches your feelings, you know what I mean? Where it's stuff that it's hard to trust in the, you know, the invisible God sometimes. You know, that's what they say.
I love.
It's impossible to please God without faith.
Yeah.
You know, so like, you just have to trust. And I think, and you know, I think, like, especially for me, like when I first became a Christian, I mean, little trust to more trust to more trust to bigger things happening to more trust. And I think as humans, our natural response is to get worried, right? So
Yeah.
they have fear, and then God takes care of it, and He's like,
Yeah.
I told you. Kind of what we do with our kids. Like, you did it. Like, I've been telling you this. Go ahead and do it. Do it. Then you do it. It's like, see?
What are some things in your past that you feel like you made a decision based solely off of fear?
I made a decision off of fear.
Yeah, like the fear of an outcome is what fueled you to make this decision. And then now looking back at that decision, you're like, man, that was a really bad decision.
I make a lot of those decisions, fear or not. Just kidding.
Well, that's just being human.
I made a decision based off of fear. Man, it's too early to be thinking about past memories.
Right?
What is a decision that I made? I don't know. I mean, probably when I want to tell the whole story, but when I was in college and I felt like I didn't have the finances to continue on. And so, like, the fear of not having the money.
Yeah.
So I took it into my own hands. And then after everything was said and was done, I went back to college, and somebody came up to me and was like, oh, we got you a $500 scholarship. And I didn't even ask for it.
Yeah.
I didn't sign up for it. I didn't ask for it. And then in that moment, God was like, see, you don't have to do this by yourself.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to take things into your own hands. I called you to do this.
Yeah.
I'll make sure you're taken care of.
Yeah.
So, like, that definitely was a thing of fear, not having the money to go to college.
Yeah. Being rejected and believing, like, or other people's opinions. Rejection and the fear of other people's opinions have been two huge fears in my life that have shaped and caused me to make some horrible decisions that I've paid for dearly with time and resources. Right?
Sure.
Rejection has come out in my life in many ways. The big one was, and this is something that, like, from a biblical perspective, community is so important, right? Having that fellowship with believers and,
Sure.
and with the community of God is important, right? But because of my fear of rejection and because of some things that happened when I was younger in a church, it was, I just was like, I don't really want to be rejected by people that claim to serve God. And I think as an adult, it's really alienated me from a group of believers, just because I'm like, I'm an all in kind of guy, So like if I go to a church, I'm all in. Like I'm
Sure.
finding ways to serve. I'm in.
Oh,
like if
100%.
there's, like every church that I've ever been a part of, I think I've attended like at least 3 days out of the week. I was in the church. You know what I mean? So it was like, it's not just for me, like a commitment
get
to get
that.
involved at a church is not just to show up on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, no,
like
I'm
it's
the
not
same
that
way.
at all,
I mean,
right?
you already know that.
Yeah, like,
Like, I'm-
it's a lifestyle, you know?
I told you. Like when we first started, I was like, look, this is something that this cannot be. This is part of the equation.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
100%.
it's life.
100%.
It's life.
And I've never served in like a like a pastoral role
Sure.
or really anything with a title in a church.
I feel like we're all pastors in some kind of way.
I mean, we should be, right?
Yeah.
We should be discipling others, right?
Sure.
But, yeah, and then like the fear of other people's perspectives and opinions. Like I started dancing ballet when I was 13 in middle of nowhere, Tennessee.
And now you just wave your arms.
Yeah, now I stand still and wave my arms. Yes, 100%, 100%.
I'm just kidding.
But like that put on me being homeschooled and then also being a ballet dancer in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, where the most predominant sport is baseball and football. Like that's what you played.
Tennessee.
Football. Yeah, like you played football. Really is what that was the most popular sport, right?
Sure.
And I lost some friendships over dancing ballet. It really it really sucked because like the whole reason why I danced ballet at the very beginning, the reasons why I got into it was to worship God. But I allowed other people's opinions of me and perspectives of me to really kind of alter who I was. And then I got to the point where I was like 23 and I had to kind of bow out of dancing because of physical injuries. And once I got out of that world, it was just like I had no clue who I was anymore and was then having to try to like reshape. But here again, though, so many people's opinions of me shifted and altered even the decisions I made at that point. And I would say it's probably not until my dad died that I really started finding that there's very little value in other people's opinions of your life.
There can be.
Yeah.
Or they could be powerful. If you have the right people in your, if you have the
That's-
right, if you have the right, it's all about who you allow to have those opinions. You're right.
The influence,
Yeah,
the
it's
circle,
the-
the sphere, the
yeah.
people whose messages
If
you're
you have the right
allowing
men-
into
if
your
you have
life.
the right mentors in life and you have the right people that you trust, if you're just trusting everybody and anybody,
Mhm.
then yeah,
Yeah,
but it's gonna kill you because you want to please, especially if you're a people pleaser.
yeah,
Especially if you're a people pleaser, right?
Yeah.
So, but it feels so good when you just like, I'm just gonna live for God. I'm just gonna, regardless of what people say or this or that, I'm just gonna continue to follow.
yeah,
There's a lot like a weight's like lifted,
Yeah.
because people are always gonna have opinions. I mean, it's if you have success, people are gonna have opinions. If you're not doing
Yeah.
well, people are gonna have opinions. It's just the way life is. If you let those control you,
yeah,
it's just gonna destroy you.
yeah.
So.
And that's so. Those are probably the two biggest fears that I've struggled with in my life.
Probably the biggest fear. My biggest fear, and I'm pretty much probably every single father probably fears, is just like, just taking care, like not being able to take care of your family. You know what I mean? And we probably all or is our kids going to love us when they get older? Or am I doing, when I'm yelling or what's the word I'm looking for? Disciplining my child. Are they going to just hate me forever? You know what I mean? Like, is this moment going to and so those are probably the fears that I have, now. Right.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think those are bad fears to have because I I think some fear keeps you on track.
Sure.
You know
Sure.
what I mean? Like, the proper fear allows you to motivate you to want to do better.
Yeah.
It wants you to do it, and so, and I think that's what that verse is really saying, the beginning of wisdom, because it's like, I have these fears.
Yeah.
And because I have that fear, I want proper wisdom. I want to do things that are right. I want to keep motivating myself to do what is correct. And so those are, and I think there's a healthy fear. I think when fear isn't healthy is when it starts to destroy you emotionally and deters you from doing what is right.
Prevents you from following God.
Yeah, prevents you from following God, prevents you from taking care of your family, prevents you from, and that's why I think as dads, it's very important for us to help our child navigate those emotions and say, it's okay to be afraid, but this is what we do in this situation.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Don't let fear control you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's a good ending on the first episode.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid.
Get out there and do it now.
Yeah.
So it's okay to be afraid. I think like I always, like my child, like I might have told this story on the first episode, I'm not sure, but my first daughter, Michaela, she still doesn't have a driver's license. If you watch this, I love you. But for the story that I understand it as, and I think she might tell it a little different, but she was afraid of driving. And so her mom basically was like, you don't have to drive. Right. I'm like, no, you do have to, but I don't have any pull because I'm not living there. And I think like when your child is afraid to do something like driving, that's okay. Your kid is going to be afraid.
Sure. It
is our job as a parent to help them overcome their fear, because it's going to do two things. It's going to build confidence in them, and it's going to build confidence in them trusting you more. Because if you tell your child that they can do it and they're going to make it, and that they do make it, they'll trust you. They'll trust you more on the next thing.
Yeah.
And it's our job to navigate our child's fear and help them overcome something, because we've hopefully, most of the time we've done it. We've already walked that path.
Yeah.
So, help your child overcome fear.
Something I learned while working at Verizon actually was, if you're going to give an employee direction, especially on something that they've never done before, you as the leader, FaceTime them. You as the leader need to know that the direction that you're giving them will end in success, right?
Sure.
So like, you're not giving that employee advice or counsel that is going to lead to them either being like embarrassed, right, or feeling stupid or inadequate, and that you're able to guide them to the end result that is desirable, right? And I think that we don't approach parenting that same way, which is really sad. But like the guidance that we give our children, like we need to think through that guidance, because they're going to take it and they're going to run to implement that into their life, especially if that relationship, is there, right? Like between you and them, where that trust is there, right? And the fastest way you can destroy that trust is by giving them advice or counsel that then ultimately ends in either them being embarrassed, feeling stupid, or not the desired outcome, right?
Yeah. That's why I always try to start with small things with my kids.
Yeah.
Like when I'm teaching Theo's chess, and it's like I just try to teach him little things to make him feel good. I want that excitement so he feels like he's accomplishing something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like when I try to teach him something else, that's harder.
Yeah.
He'll be like, okay, I remember that I did this. Here's an example. So we were teaching him chess, and it's just the two rooks against the king.
Yeah.
Easiest checkmating pattern you possibly can have in chess, right? And so I put, like, we're on the computer. So we have a chessboard, but he likes to do it on the computer. And so I don't know, Stockfish? Stockfish is basically like the computer engine that you play against.
Yeah.
And so I put the two kings out there and the two rooks out there, and then I put it on level 8. So Stockfish goes a lot harder than that, but then Lee chess, it only goes up to 8, and I put it on the hardest, the very, very hardest.
Yeah.
And his first reaction was like, "It's the hardest? What?" You got frustrated. In my mind, I'm like, "It's impossible to lose. It doesn't matter how hard. You can put the computer on 1,000,000.
Sure.
You can't lose that. You can't lose that unless you just literally leave the rook hanging.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's impossible.
Let him walk his king up to it and just
like
capture it. Yeah.
It's the only way that you're going to
Yeah.
lose this. And so like, and I've already trained him and taught him how to move his rooks, like when the king gets close, to move it to the other side of the board.
Yeah.
So the king doesn't have time to get there, right?
Yep.
So I've already trained him to do that. So I put it on 8, and he's scared. He's like, "Man, this is the hardest level.
Yeah.
There's no way I could do this." And then he checkmates the king,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he's like, he feels like this excitement because it's on the hardest level, and he was able to checkmate the king.
Yeah.
And so, and I even told him, I was like, "Look, this is impossible. You're not going to lose this. I promise."
Yeah.
And he checkmates the king with 2 rooks, right?
Yeah.
And but that level of confidence builds more to do more, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So
that's a beautiful thing, man.
yeah, because you see the smile on his face. You see the
yeah.
fear on his face. He's scared because this kid doesn't want to lose.
No.
He hates losing.
Yeah.
And he does, like, I mean, and so to be able to see him go from very, very scared to like almost crying,
Wow.
you know what I mean, to a smile, you know, that it's always funny when you see your kid like they're fearing and they're crying or whatever, and then they do it and then they crack, like they don't want to smile because they don't want you to know,
Yeah.
but they can't help it, so like they have this smile on their face and so yeah, so like I'm trying to train my child like with very small things and then helping him overcome, and so that's kind of what and I want him to be a professional chess player. I'm just kidding.
New international master.
I'm trying to live my dreams through my child.
A chess prodigy.
Or a video game, something.
Nice.
We just started playing. Another thing is, and we keep saying this is the end, but
Yeah.
another thing with fear is that, like, so I started doing drum lessons with my not me, but this other kid at the church.
Yeah.
Giving my kid drum lessons, and he walked up. Laura was like, "Well, I told him that he doesn't really." Theo said, "I don't really want to do it anymore," and Laura was like, "I told him he could do it a few more weeks, and if he just doesn't want to do it, he doesn't have to." Yeah. I'm like, "Laura, the only reason he doesn't want to do it is because it's too hard.
Yeah,
it's the only reason he doesn't want to do it, because he fears he's not going to be good enough, and it's too hard." And she's like, "I don't know." I'm like, I was like, "Theo, if the keyboard is," because he was like, he wants to play the keyboard. I was like, "Theo, if the keyboard's too hard, you're gonna want to play it?" No. I'm like, "See, exactly. Like if something is too hard, he just wants to give up." And I'm like, we're not going to train our child because something is too hard, they're just going to give up. Because guess what? You're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
You're not going to do anything.
Yep.
Because your whole life, there is nothing that you're just going to come out of the gate and be really good at.
Yeah.
Especially an instrument, especially something. So it's like, no, I want to put in our kids, like I want to force, I really truly, I mean, maybe I'll get some slack for this or not, but I really believe that we should force our kids to do something, because if we don't force our kids to do something, they're just not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And like, I get it. Like, I'm not forcing my kids to play the drums for 8 hours a day. Right.
Sure.
Like I get that there's a level of, but like, I want them to learn, and an instrument is a very good way in many things, areas in your life. If you learn, I wish I played an instrument.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, and I'm not saying that's why I'm having my kid, but it's like your brain does something when you learn how to play an instrument and read music or whatever. There's something that happens to your brain that it gives you a certain skill that, you know, and so. Yeah, so I mean,
it develops your brain.
Yeah, I make them
faster.
practice for like 5 minutes a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Literally, like, set a timer. Just want to practice for 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day. So
that discipline is important.
Yeah. I think it's going to teach that child.
Yeah.
Teach my kid. But it's funny. This is just Thatcher. Like, so Theo doesn't want to play the drums.
Yeah.
Every time Thatcher has to be the fastest crawler in the world. I wish that like there was a race for this kid how fast he can crawl. I mean,
I bet there is. I bet there's baby crawling races.
He can blink. You can blink, and he's across the street. Like, I mean, like that's how fast this child is. Wow. He's just like, he's probably the fastest kid that I've seen. My kid has crawled, but he'll hear the drums play, and he'll run. He'll and if you put music on, he'll grab if you leave that door open, he'll just grab a drumstick, and all of a sudden you'll just hear him banging on the drums, or he'll be playing like this, or he'll grab a drum or a Lego, and he'll be just hitting. I was like, At least that wasn't a waste of money. At least someone's playing the drums.
Yeah.
No, but
Nice.
it's really cute. Like you just see it the other day, you just hear like the drums banging, and he'll like reach on the little knobs and turn the knobs for like to turn the volume up.
Yeah.
This kid's 1 year old, and he's just like, it's fun.
I mean,
That's where it starts. I mean, yeah,
the next Mozart.
it's possible. The next drummer.
Yeah, yeah. Well, another, I think, fear that is a really big one, and I think it hits people in different stages in life. Mine definitely hit me after my dad died, because he died literally in my arms. I saw the life pass out of his body, and I've seen people die before, right? But it hit me different when it was my dad.
Oh,
right?
Sure.
And so like the fear of death, like I heard this interview with Rabbi Daniel Lapin, and it was so interesting because he comes from a rabbinic mindset, right? But the parable of the talents in the New Testament was the topic, right? So you had this Christian that was interviewing a rabbi that does not believe Jesus is the Messiah, right? So they're trying to talk kind of through the New and Old Testament and try to kind of get middle ground where they were both comfortable with the conversation, if that makes sense, right?
Sure.
But one of the things that the rabbi was saying was that, well, in the Jewish community, in the rabbinic traditions, like they look at life as a daily gift or an investment, so to speak, that they want to give God a return on that investment. So every day they're praying, one more day, Lord, one more day, right? We want one more day to serve you. We want one more day to, work on these talents and these gifts you've given us, to be better stewards of these gifts and talents that you've given us, right? And unpacking that parable, you have a situation where the what's his name? I don't remember what he's called in the Bible, but basically like the boss, right? The landowner, the foreman, the owner of this estate, right? He leaves. He goes away on a trip. None of them know when he's coming back, and that is so, I think, like life. None of us know when our time is, right, and when it's coming. And to live life with that fear grappling you and holding you down, you could end up being the person with the one talent that went out and buried it and hid it under the ground. And when he came back and, he was called by his master and was like, hey, what did you do with those talents? Mm-hmm. It's like, it's better to go out there and make mistakes. It's better to go out there and chase life and put everything that you have every single day into this, because when your time comes, you want that well done and good, and well done, my good and faithful servant. You want that, and the only way that you do that is by throwing off that shackle, that fear in your life and getting after it. So.
Yeah, I heard a story about my friend knew a lady who had like a beautiful voice, and she wouldn't sing. She wouldn't use it for. She didn't even use, not just say use it for God, but she didn't even sing. She was too afraid to even use it in front of people and all that. And he said that God just took the voice away, and she couldn't. I don't even know if it could even like talk that well. Like was like, you weren't using. I gave you this, and you weren't using it. And I just took it. That's a scary thought.
Yeah. When you think of if you think of your life, and it ties into Genesis when God breathed His life into us, like He invested His life, the breath of life. He invested that into us. Like if you think of your life as an investment that God is expecting a return on, and you have a beautiful voice, you know what I mean, and you're not praising God with that, even if it's just in your own home. Right? Like, He'll work on you. Like Moses was not a great speaker.
Moses made a lot of excuses.
Moses made a ton of excuses. And he never made it to the promised land. Could you imagine? Being the guy that literally witnessed all of those plagues,
And not make
led God's children through the Red Sea, right? You did all of that. You literally saw with the raising of your arms the Israelites destroying their foes. You saw like there's all of those that was Moses? Yeah, it wasn't Aaron.
Yeah,
it was Moses. Okay,
yeah,
sorry, I
Moses.
was like, wait, did I just say
Lift
something
the staff
completely
up
wrong?
and-
Yeah, like he saw all of those things, but because of the excuses, because of the disobedience, he was not able to enter the promised land.
That's horrible. To see
It was very clearly mapped out by God. Like, hey man, do these things. And he decided not to do those things. He made excuses for them. And then he also tried to blame other people too, which, I mean, that whole scenario right there is like 4 podcasts. I feel like we could unpack that. But anyways, yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening
for watching.
to the Dad Experience. Hope
We're
you guys
gonna end
have
at around 40 minutes, and it went to an hour.
Yeah. Well, hope you all have a great Father's Day this
Well, when
Sunday.
they watch it, it will probably be in July.
Yeah, well, we hope you
Had a good Father's
Yeah, we hope you had a great Father's Day
We're
then.
recording this the Saturday prior,
Yeah,
but I mean, that's the last thought is just, it's okay to be afraid. There's going to be things, but trust and lean on God and His wisdom, and continue to work hard and continue to work towards, pleasing God.
yeah.
And it should all work out.
Our part is showing up.
Showing up and working.
That's what we got to do. That's our part.
Peace.